Have you ever wondered, what if the Cold War turned hot? Let's take a moment to step back to the end of World War II in 1945. Picture two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, standing on either side of a global chessboard. Both nations, fresh from the battlefields of the Second World War, are eager to spread their influence across the globe. But here's the twist. It's less of a traditional game and more of a high-stakes match where neither player dares to make the first move. Instead, they flex their muscles through political maneuvers and military posturing, creating an atmosphere of geopolitical rivalry that's as tense as a tightrope. Imagine two neighbors constantly trying to outdo each other, except these neighbors have nuclear weapons. Exciting, isn't it? Or terrifying, depending on how you look at it. And so the stage was set for a global game of chess, where the players were armed with nuclear weapons. Imagine a fight where no blows are exchanged, yet the tension is palpable. Welcome to the world of the Cold War, a high-stakes game of chess, where the pieces were nations and the players were superpowers. The battlefield was the globe, and the weapons were not always what you'd expect. Now, you might think of wars as battles with bullets and bombs, but the Cold War was a different beast altogether. It was a conflict fought not on the front lines, but behind the scenes, in the shadows. Picture this. Instead of armies clashing on open fields, we had espionage, a world of spies and secret agents, where information was as valuable as gold. It was like an intense game of hide and seek, where the stakes were the fate of nations. Then came the propaganda, a war of words and images. Each side tried to paint the other as the villain, using everything from newspapers to cartoons. Think of it like a schoolyard squabble, with each side trying to convince the teacher they're the innocent party. And let's not forget the arms race. This was the Cold War's version of a schoolyard bragging contest. Who has the bigger boomstick? The United States and the Soviet Union competed to develop the most destructive weapons known to man, culminating in the creation of nuclear bombs. It was like two chefs trying to outdo each other, except instead of creating the tastiest dish, they were concocting the most potent recipe for destruction. The development of these nuclear weapons was a game changer. It was like bringing a bazooka to a knife fight. Suddenly, the stakes were not just victory or defeat, but the very survival of the human race. This threat of mutual destruction created a delicate balance, a deterrent that kept the superpowers from engaging in direct conflict. In this strange war, the threat of mutual destruction kept the peace, a peace as fragile as a glass house in a hailstorm. Can you guess when this frosty standoff finally began to melt? It was a process, rather than a moment. Like a gigantic ice sculpture under a summer sun, the Cold War began to drip and dissolve. Let's plunge into the 1980s, a decade marked by a series of significant events that signaled the thaw of the Cold War. The Soviet Union, under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, embarked on a path of significant reforms. Policies like glasnost and perestroika were introduced, opening up the nation and restructuring the economy. And then, in 1989, the Berlin Wall, that concrete symbol of division, came crashing down. Imagine a long-awaited family reunion, but instead of a cozy living room, it's on the rubble of a once formidable barrier. The events following this were like dominoes falling. Eastern European countries, one after another, shrugged off the shackles of communism. The world watched as these nations claimed their independence, like teenagers finally moving out of their parents' house. Finally, in 1991, the Soviet Union did a spectacular belly flop into the pool of history. The Union dissolved, breaking up into 15 separate countries. Imagine a band breaking up, but instead of disappointed fans, you have entire nations finding their own voice. And just like that, the frosty standoff melted away, leaving behind a new world order. A world once divided by an icy curtain of tension and rivalry was now stepping into the warmth of a new era. So, what did this decades-long teeth-gritting standoff leave us with? Well, besides shaping international relations and influencing domestic policies, it hurled us into a technological revolution. We owe our space exploration and the internet, ironically, to this frosty feud. And on a lighter note, It also gave us a genre of thrilling spy movies and secret agent fantasies. In the end, the Cold War shaped our world in ways we're still discovering. It's a chilling reminder of how close we came to a nuclear winter and how important it is to keep the peace. After all, who wants to live in a world without spy movies, right?